right, everybody, welcome to the March 12th Board of Supervisors meeting. It's starting now at 6:31. I'm calling it to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like to start. We have some commendations today, and I'd like to start with a proclamation for the Plymouth-Whitemarsh High School DECA chapter. And I want to welcome the chapter's advisor, Beth Rickard, and Declan McGorry, who is the president of the Plymouth-Whitemarsh DECA chapter. Would you like to come up and tell us a little bit? I understand there's some accomplishments that you want to talk about.
So I'm Declan McGorry. I'm the president of the chapter. So as DECA, we kind of we're an active student body club at Plymouth-Whitemarsh. We're involved in a lot of business stuff. So we compete in marketing competitions, management, finance, hospitality, and whatnot. We equip students with real-world business experience through these competitions, and we learn a lot about the business world, and it prepares us for college. And I'm a high school senior majoring in business, so it kind of opened up that pathway for me. So many of the achievements we've had is that many of our members have gone to district competitions, have been super successful this year. We've had numerous people qualify for the State Development Conference that was back in February. Then even more people have qualified for the International Conference that's down in Atlanta, Georgia, later this year. So the last year and a half, we've been recognized by PA DECA for winning numerous awards, like the Helping Hands Award, which was where we earned thousands of dollars for this charity, this dog rescue charity. And we put on a 5K and a bingo, which raised a lot of funds for that. And then we're just very involved in the community with volunteering. All of our members need 2 hours of volunteer work, and we've been very good with getting volunteer opportunities for all of our members. And then just overall, DECA has taught me and a bunch of my students, a bunch of my fellow students, and this is my secretary, Jason. We both learned through DECA, what it means to, be a leader. I was the secretary last year, and now I'm the president. I've learned what it means to be a leader through DECA, be a business leader, and I've all my confidence through these role plays, which have been really helpful and really helpful for everybody else at PW.
Thank you for sharing that. How many members do you have?
I think we have around 50 to 60.
That's
a good
wonderful.
amount.
And
Yeah.
are they across the board in high school, 9th through 12th?
Yeah, 9 through 12.
That's great. And congratulations on heading to Atlanta later this year. When is that?
End of April.
Oh, good luck.
Thank you.
Be thinking of you.
Thank you.
I have a proclamation for you here that I'm going to read. I didn't know if the board wanted to. Did you have any questions for the boys?
What are your plans after high school?
I've committed to Immaculata University to major in business and sport management, and I'm also going to be running on the cross-country and track team there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How about you, Jason?
I am only a junior, but
Okay.
I also plan on attending college and majoring in marketing.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation. Whereas the DECA program is a recognized and active study body club at Plymouth-Whitemarsh High School, which prepares its student members for careers in marketing, finance, management, and hospitality. And whereas DECA equips students with real-world business experience through competitive events, leadership conferences, and community initiatives. And whereas Plymouth-Whitemarsh students were selected as a state and national qualifiers for outstanding projects that support local and regional businesses. And whereas at the Pennsylvania DECA State Career Development Conference, they were honored with both the prestigious DECA Cup, awarded to the most outstanding chapter in the state, and the Helping Hands Award for their charitable efforts. And whereas Plymouth-Whitemarsh DECA students have selflessly and generously participated in community service projects supporting nonprofit organizations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Whitemarsh Township Board of Supervisors, do hereby present to DECA this proclamation proudly recognizing the organization's exemplary dedication and years of service to the Whitemarsh Township community. Let it be resolved this day, March 12th, 2026. And it's signed by myself and our Township Manager. And I'm going to come down and present this to you both.
There you go.
Take a picture and put you in the newsletter. And now, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good job. Good job. Craig, back it up. Jason, congratulations.
Moving on to the second proclamation that I have tonight, recognizing April 2026 as Pennsylvania 8/11 Safe Digging Month. I'm going to read a proclamation here. Whereas the month of April 2026 is recognized as Pennsylvania 8/11 Safe Digging Month, and the initiative sponsored by Pennsylvania 8/11, a utility notification information center with 54 years of continuous service to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And whereas Pennsylvania 8/11 received more than 1 million excavation notifications in 2025, over 30,000 construction projects in Coordinate PA, and transmitted approximately 6 million notifications to their member facility owners and operators, allowing essential utility and construction crews to provide vital underground services and repair of critical infrastructure to communities throughout Pennsylvania. And whereas, when contacting 8/11 at least 3 business days before digging, a homeowner or a contractor is connected to a unique service that notifies the appropriate underground utility operators in the municipality in which the work will be performed. And whereas, by notifying 8/11 of their intent to dig, the homeowner or contractor is knowingly helping to protect the underground utilities themselves, the work crew, and their neighbors from any unsafe digging practices within their community. And whereas, upon receiving the notification from Pennsylvania 811, the facility owners and operators dispersed to the said worksite to mark the approximate location of their underground utility lines with flags, paint, or both, to establish an 18-inch tolerance zone of the outside wall or edge of their line or facility. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Whitemarsh Township, Montgomery County, in support of the Pennsylvania Underground Utility Line Protection Law, PA Act 287 of 1974, as amended, we do hereby proclaim April 2026 as Pennsylvania 8/11 Safe Digging Month and encourage all Pennsylvanians to visit the Pennsylvania 811 website at www.pa1call.org for more information about digging safely. Signed by myself and my township manager. I don't believe we have anyone to receive this this evening.
No, I have to send that to them.
Okay, so we'll go and take care of that. Is there anything more to add?
That's it, just to be safe before you dig, so call before you dig.
All right. Thank you all on that one. And last, we have a proclamation recognizing April 24th as Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting, heating, and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, I, J.C. Toll, Chair of the Whitemarsh Township Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 24th as Arbor Day in the Township of Whitemarsh. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Resolved this day, 12th of March, 2026, signed by myself and Craig McAnally. Thank you. And just a shout out, at the end of September this year, it will be our annual tree giveaway, so keep an eye out for that. It's been really wonderfully participated in, and we're thankful to everyone who continues to plant trees. All right, I am going to turn it over to Beth Moy for announcements.
Thank you, JC. The Township is in discussions about joining the History Tour of Whitemarsh for America 250 with other historical properties throughout the Township. Our property at Abolition Hall would be our location to promote. Stay tuned for more information on this event, along with other events for the semi-quincentennial celebration on our website. On Saturday, April 4th, 2026, from 8 to 11, we will host the annual Wells Street Open Space Education Cleanup. Park at Cedar Grove Park, grab a friend, and help maintain this beautiful natural space. A representative from Berkheimer Associates will be at the Township Building on April 21st from 9 to 1 to assist residents with tax payments for the discount period. This information is on every tax bill that was mailed out on March 2nd, 2026. And finally, save the date. Whitemarsh Township Day will be held at Victory Fields at Plymouth-Whitemarsh High School on April 25th from 12 to 5.
Thank you, Beth. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 8th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 12th, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Moving down to public hearings. Do I need to make a motion?
Motion to open the public hearing.
All right. Do I have a motion to open a public hearing for the review of conditional use CU 01-26 for Fort Washington Real Estate, LLC, located at 451 Bethlehem Pike, for a medical dental office?
So moved.
Second.
So you had a motion and a second? A motion and a second, call the
Yeah,
vote.
there was a motion and a second.
Right, okay, right. All right. So we have right here, we have a conditional use hearing. I'm going to go ahead and mark some exhibits. T1 is an application and supplement with photographs and associated documents submitted January 14th, 2026 with a revised supplement submitted February 5th, 2026. T2 is a proof of publication in the Times Herald on February 26th and March 4th, 2026. T3 was the applicant meeting notification letter dated February 6, 2026. T4 was a resident meeting notification letter of February 6, 2026. T5 would be the posting notice dated March 3rd, 2026. T6 will be the zoning compliance review letter dated January 27, 2026. T7 will be the fire marshal memo of February 5th, 2026. T8 will be the Whitemarsh Township Planning Commission recommendation, a motion recommending approval as documented in the meeting minutes dated February 10th, 2026. So a conditional use hearing is akin to a special exception in a zoning hearing, whereas the Board of Supervisors sit in a quasi-judicial role. So one of the things that can happen in a conditional use hearing is someone can request what's called party status. Party status does not mean that there will always be an opportunity to comment for the public at a conditional use hearing. Party status means that they live within usually about 500 feet of the application, and they desire to call witnesses or cross-examine any witnesses that may be called. So I just want to see a show of hands. Is anyone requesting party status related to this conditional use application? Okay, seeing none, then what would happen is the Board of Supervisors, we're going to hear a brief explanation from our zoning officer, Mr. Guttenplan. Then there will be the applicant's attorney can come forward, make a brief presentation. There will be an opportunity for them to call witnesses if they so choose. There will be there can be an opportunity for board questions, then an opportunity for public comment. Then the board can go ahead and continue the public hearing to a later date if they wanted more information, or close the public hearing and consider taking action. Mr. Guttenplan?
Thank you very much. This is, as you've heard, a conditional use for a medical or dental office. In this case, it is a dental, actually an orthodontist office. The location at 451 Bethlehem Pike is actually a building that many of you probably know as Wissahickon Hall, a 3-story historic office building on Bethlehem Pike. Celso Light is the attorney here for the applicant, and I believe he has a short presentation, and I'd like to turn it over to him at this point. And while he comes up to the podium, I will just emphasize what you heard in T8 is that the Planning Commission at their February meeting did hear this application and did recommend approval of it.
Thank you, Charlie. Good evening, Celso Light of Hamburg Rubin here this evening on behalf of applicant Fort Washington Real Estate LLC. With me this evening is Dr. Brian Ziebrick, the principal of the applicant. As Charlie mentioned, Dr. Ziebrick would like to open a dental office at the Wissahickon Hall building located at 451 Bethlehem Pike. That dental office use is permitted in the VC1 district by conditional use. We're here this evening with the recommendation of your Planning Commission to seek the board's conditional use approval. I only have one witness with me this evening. That's Dr. Ziebrick, but before we move forward, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to take care of. The first is the board amenable to an offer of proof?
Yes.
Okay. And second, I have my exhibits pre-marked in exhibit books. It might make it easier if I just distribute that now and we move it onto the record. Is that okay?
Yes, that would make sense. And what I know the board has, some members of the board have heard this before, what an offer of proof is, and in an application that may be viewed as somewhat uncontroversial, rather than calling a series of witnesses, the attorney would basically proffer what those witnesses would say, and that would be sworn later, and it expedites the process. Of course, he is calling the doctor as a witness as well, if you had more detailed applications about that. But if you wanted, if you didn't want the offer of proof and wanted to go through all the inertia, that is your right. But in doing this application and talking to Mr. Guttenplan, we thought an offer of proof would be appropriate. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to start by handing out my exhibit books.
Thank you.
Excellent.
So just for the record, so it's very clear, this will be, there are 9 exhibits here in this packet, so we'll mark them A as an applicant, 1 through 9.
And thank you, Mr. Solicitor. All right, if called to testify, Dr. Ziebrick would testify as to the property's history, its current condition, and the proposed dental office. His testimony would provide in pertinent part as follows. Referring to tab 1, the amended application, applicant is Fort Washington Real Estate LLC, and that's the amended application without all of the attachments. Dr. Ziebrick is the principal of Fort Washington Real Estate LLC and is authorized to speak on its behalf this evening. Referring to tab 2 and tab 3, the property is currently owned by 451 Bethlehem Pike, Wissahickon Hall LLC, and I realize I just left the remote over there.
You have to turn it on the side.
Thank you. Referring to tab 4, Applicant is the equitable owner of the property with standing to pursue this application. This is not the first time that this property has been before the board. Referring to tab 5, that's the lot line change plan from 2015. This property was the subject of a rather complex lot line adjustment over 10 years ago, and as a result, the property now relies on 455 Bethlehem Pike for parking and access. Applicant and applicant's counsel have been in contact with the township zoning officer. Referring to tab 6, the zoning officer's review. The township zoning officer has not identified any areas of concern with his review of the proposal. And similarly, referring to tab 7, the fire marshal review. The township fire marshal has not identified any areas of concern in his review of the proposal. This application, as I mentioned, was before the Township Planning Commission in February, where we received the Planning Commission's recommendation. Referring to tab 8, Wissahickon Hall exterior photographs. The Wissahickon Hall building is a great, beautiful, older building, but unfortunately, a significant portion of the building is currently vacant. The property does have a difficult interior. It's been difficult for the current owner to find long-term tenants for this space. Bringing Dr. Ziebrick's practice to this location would be a great opportunity to do an adaptive reuse and renovation of an older structure. Dr. Ziebrick currently runs an orthodontic practice in Lansdale and serves a variety of patients from children to seniors. Gives you an idea, some of the dental office photographs. This property is going to serve as a second location for Dr. Ziebrick. He'd like to move part of his practice to the first floor of the Wissahickon Hall building and then gradually ramp his business up at this location. Referring to tab 9, the dental office photographs, Dr. Ziebrick would testify that these photos of his Lansdale office provide a good estimate of what the Whitemarsh Township office is going to look like when it opens. Dr. Ziebrick's practice is by appointment only. They do not accept walk-ins. He expects to have about 4 to 5 patients on site at any one time, which of course may vary with business demand, which we hope will go up. His office hours are typically 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. His peak time is typically after school. That's 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Dr. Ziebrick would further testify as to his belief that after review of the zoning officer and fire marshal review, that the proposed dental office complies with the applicable conditional use criteria in the township code. In particular, Dr. Ziebrick would testify that the proposed dental office complies with the commercial character of the neighborhood and that the use of the adjacent property will be adequately safeguarded. He would further testify that the proposed dental office will have no harmful effect on local vehicular or pedestrian traffic, that it is consistent with the township's planning goals, and that the practice would not produce any objectionable noise, lighting, glare, heat, ventilation, smoke, fumes, vapors, dust, dirt, gases, radioactive, or electrical disturbance. There will be no adverse effects, including visual impacts on adjacent property. The proposed use will not unduly burden sanitary sewer, schools, police, fire, park, stormwater management, or other public facilities or services, which concludes my offer. And I'd like to now call Dr. Ziebrick to testify, and he will then be available for any questions should you have them.
Thank you.
Swear him in.
Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you spell your full name for me, please?
BRIANZEBRSNK.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Ziebrick, were you present for my offer of proof on your behalf?
Yes.
Okay. And if called to testify, would your testimony have been consistent with my offer?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Does the board have any questions either for myself or for Dr. Ziebrick?
Are there any questions from the board?
A question actually for Charlie. The parking is sufficient under the code for the intended use?
Yeah, as we talked about at the Planning Commission, when this lot line change that was mentioned took place in 2015, there was a zoning hearing board case, and at that time it was determined that a variance for 27 spaces was adequate for this building. Actually, since then, we have relaxed our professional office parking standard. So while the building was all under more stringent standard in 2015, the professional office component of this building is actually under a lesser standard. So if 27 was deemed adequate by the zoning hearing board in 2015, it's more than adequate now.
And that was 27 for the entire building?
Yes.
And Doctor, what are your plans for the other floors of the building, if you have any today?
Today, not as much, but it's probably professional use, smaller offices. I don't plan to use it myself, the third or second or third floor.
Okay, but the entire building you would intend to use for commercial purposes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So right
If
now-
the, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, if the entire building went to medical office, it would be at the same rate that it would have been for the whole building in 2015. So it would be equal to that when the variance was granted.
Okay.
What is your timeline for opening for business?
Once we get approval for the conditional use, we're hoping to be open in about 6 months or so.
6 months.
Yeah.
And then do you intend to hire employees for this location?
No, it would be in addition to our current location. So we have 3.5 days open at Inland Sale. We would open 1 day a week for Washington, and then as needed from there.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify a follow-up question, you would then consider increasing the number of days there depending on business demand? You're not limiting yourself to just 1 day?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Most likely in the future, we probably wouldn't be open more than 2 to 3 days a week type of thing.
And as you said, primarily in the after-school hours.
It would be open during normal business hours, but our busiest time is when school.
It's after school.
Kids are
Yep.
majority of them, patients.
It's a good location.
It's a great location.
Any other board comment? Any public comment? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would suggest a motion to close the
Yep.
public hearing.
I am, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance, to approve the conditional use CU number 1-26 for Fort Washington Real Estate LLC located at 451 Bethlehem Pike for a medical dental office use?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations and
Good
good
luck.
luck.
Congratulations.
For your time, appreciate it.
Welcome to the township.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move down to reviewing amendments and additions to the open burning ordinance for Whitemarsh Township. This was authorized for advertising last month, and I'd like to turn it over to Fire Marshal Andrew Thomas to summarize, please.
Good evening. The amendments for the open burning ordinance were proposed to assist our partners at the apartment complexes and condos with dealing with specifically charcoal burners and open flame cooking devices put on combustible balconies. We did also put exceptions in there. If you have a 1 or 2 family dwelling, it's not intended for that. And if there is a sprinklered balcony with some of our newer construction, that they're allowed to have the cooking devices out there. But it's to assist our apartment complexes with issues that arose during fire inspections that they had trouble working with their tenants to address.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? All right. Do I have an motion to approve Ordinance 1052, amending the open burning provisions in Whitemarsh Township?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving down to the property recognition program for resolution for 2026 Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Grant. I'm going to turn it over to Krista Heinrich.
Thank you,
Krista?
Chair Toll. Before you is a resolution that would authorize our office to apply for a Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program grant to allow for the construction of a parking area and trail that would connect to the future county trail on the Abolition Hall property. The grant amount, the total project amount would be $314,425.01, and the grant would cover $250,000. The remainder would be our match of $64,425.01, and that is also part of this. It would be your commitment to provide that match should we get the grant. So we're recommending approval of this resolution.
Thank you. And when would we find out?
The grants are
think?
due May 31st, so we're still putting together all the exhibits and cost estimates.
Got it.
Usually it's a couple months, but you never know. It is a state program, so sometimes that depends on budgeting and whatnot.
Right.
So hopefully by the end of the year, and then we could potentially start next year. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Thank you, Krista. Any board comment? Any public comment? Sidell, come on up.
Good evening, Sidell Zove, Harts Ridge Road. I have a couple of questions. I'm curious about the actual location of the parking. Will it be at the Corson/Abolition Hall property, or will it be on what had been known as the Hall property at 4046, I think is the address, of Butler Pike, which is also owned by the township? So where's the actual parking?
So this, we're still working on the plans that would go as exhibits with the application, but this would be in front of Abolition Hall. If you're facing Abolition Hall, it'd be more to the left, over in the meadow area. And
If you're facing the barn or Abolition Hall?
The barn, if you're facing the barn, yeah. It would
Okay.
be to the left of the barn. And it's based on a sketch that Claire Donato had prepared and presented last year, I believe, to the steering committee.
Okay, and how will this connect to the cross-county trailhead, which I believe is planned for the Hall property?
Our trailhead would connect to the county trail via a sidewalk along Butler Pike and a 10-foot wide trail through the meadow. When the county comes in and does their trailhead, they can connect their parking however they choose to, but that's how we would connect.
So the intention is to construct a sidewalk from the driveway into the trailhead parking on Abolition Hall property, all the way to the Hall property.
All the way to where the county trail would be. It would not go onward to the Hall property.
Okay. Do we know where the county trail?
We do.
And where exactly will that cross Butler Pike?
It's generally lined up with one of the driveways of Danella. So it's going to come through Danella.
Right.
Cross
Cross
mid-block.
Butler at that point?
Yes.
And then from there, where?
The county trail?
Yeah. Along Butler?
No, it sneaks through the property and then onward. They haven't finalized it, but we know where it will be.
But
within.
it snakes through the Abolition Hall property?
Correct.
Okay. And are you coordinating this application with the county?
We have a letter of support from the county. So yes.
Okay. And how many parking spaces do you anticipate creating?
24. And 2 ADA. Well, ADA are part of the 24.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other public comment? All right, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2026-07 for the application and commitment of funds as matching requirement for a 2026 Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program grant to be used as a trailhead parking at Abolition Hall?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, I'm going to go down to the Property Recognition Program request for consideration for Better Yards, Better Whitemarsh, Better Planet Program by the Whitemarsh EAB. Do I have a recommendation to approve the Better Yards, Better Whitemarsh, Better Planet Property Recognition Program as reviewed in 2024, 2025, and tonight?
So moved.
Second.
All right, before we vote on that, I'm going to call Deb Schriero up to talk about the program.
Okay, I've got it in the packet. Okay. Hi, I'm Deb Schmidt. I'm the chairperson of the Environmental Advisory Board, and you all have heard me talk about this before. It's been a year-and-a-half process, and it's finally coming to fruition, so I'm going to thank you all for your support of this. I talked to someone at the Whitpain Township EIC, and they have a similar program. It's been active for 2 years now, and they have 80 certified yards in Whitpain. So, Whitemarsh, we have a goal. So we're looking forward to it. We have signs that that Sam has produced to put on the yards should people want them, as well as certificates and other recognitions. So once again, thank you for your support, and we've got some work to do now. So thanks.
Thank you, Deb. Are there any board comment or questions?
Just thank you for all the work that went into this. It's great.
Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Deb, and thanks for all you do. Really appreciate it. Do I have a motion to approve authorization to advertise an ordinance for the sale of real property located at 14 Marple Lane, Plymouth Meeting through a public bid process?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. McAnally.
Yes, this is a subdivision off of the Abolition Hall site. It's 0.484 acres, so almost a half acre on Marple Lane. There's an existing house and garage on the property. We'd like to go out to bid and sell the property. All the proceeds would go to the redevelopment of Abolition Hall and 1 Germantown Pike and the properties over there. So looking to go out to bid and hopefully get the highest bidder come in.
Thank you. When do you think it would actually happen to go out to bid?
Well, this is just to authorize.
Right.
So, we're probably looking at early May.
Got it. Thank you. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? Sidell.
Sidell Zove. Once again, I just want to bring up my concern that I raised previously about the presence of the delineated wetland that is behind. It's part of 14 Marple Lane and extends beyond that into the fields behind Abolition Hall. I hope that any of the documents that are released in connection with the public offering, public bid, make certain that the presence of the wetland is noted, and the restrictions with regard to any kind of disturbance of the wetland is noted. And not just the wetland, but the protection area around it. And I think Krista has referenced that multiple times. So it's the delineated wetland along with the buffer, and I forget how many feet that is exactly.
25.
Right. So can someone offer some assurance that the presence of the wetland and the restrictions concerning any disturbance around it and within the buffer will be noted in the public offering?
Yeah, the subdivision plan will actually delineates the wetlands on there, and then we can have that on the documents for the bids.
And the buffer as well, that will be shown?
That is shown.
That
Yep,
is shown.
in the record
Okay.
plan. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to authorize the Solicitor's Office to represent Whitemarsh Township at a validity challenge appeal for 318 Whitemarsh Valley Road?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to turn it over to Sean Kilkenny.
Sure. Thank you very much, Board. As has been discussed by the Board and has been on even last evening's zoning hearing board agenda, it's well known that as part of an application, a validity challenge to our zoning ordinance has been filed by the applicant, attempting to say that our ordinance is unconstitutional. We are obviously going to vigorously defend our ordinance, and also to ask for, as part of an engagement, an expert witness, Mr. Cools, to serve as a witness for our application. And we will keep the board apprised of the developments related to the zoning hearing board.
Thank you, Sean. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion in ratifying the Solicitor's Office representation of the zoning officer at the zoning hearing board proceeding for Cadence Development Partners, zoning hearing board 2025-38 on March 11th?
So moved.
Second.
And I'm going to turn that over again to Sean.
Sure, thank you very much. Obviously, our board defends staff decisions related to determinations that our zoning officer makes as required by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. So in these circumstances, when there is a challenge to the zoning determination, our office will often go defend the township's interests. We became aware that this was going to happen in between meetings, so the board was polled as to sending our office to represent the township. So last night, Ms. Williams was there with Mr. Guttenplan. My understanding is Mr. Guttenplan was not needed or utilized in that form, but we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's and approving, I guess, retroactively that authorization to send my firm.
Thank you. Is there any other board comment? Any public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving down to, do I have a motion to authorize the advertisement of public bid for the 2026 road program?
So moved.
Second.
Krista.
Thank you, Chair Tola. We're nearing completion of the contract documents for this year's road program, and this is simply a request for authorization to publicly bid those documents.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Any public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to authorize the advertisement of an ordinance signifying the township's intention in the formation of a new 501c3 as recommended by the Abolition Hall Steering Committee for the buildings and land associated with 4006 Butler Pike and 1 Germantown Pike?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to turn it over to Craig McAnally.
Yes, at the Abolition Hall Steering Committee, there was some discussions on different ways for programming and to fundraise for the property. One of the solutions that was approved, or the one that was approved, I should say, for Abolition Hall to move forward to this board was forming a 501c3. That would be for the redevelopment, the operation, programming consistent with the existing agreement for the site. What that will do is separate the Abolition Hall Steering Committee into a new 501c3. It'll separate that from the township. It'll give some better bidding thresholds so we get better competitive pricing on different construction jobs that must be done down there, and it'll give us more opportunities for grants for the nonprofit. We're looking just to authorize the advertisement for a new 501c3. There is some more work to be done. We have to incorporate some bylaws, do articles of incorporation, create a new board. So after all that is done and submitted to the state, it will be about 6 months before we would hear back whether we get approved for a 501c3. So this is just to authorize the advertisement of the 501c3.
Thanks, Craig. And just to be clear, the proceeds from the sale of Marple Lane would go into this 501c3 as well, once that property is sold.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? Sidell.
Sidell Zove, again, more questions than comment. Articles of incorporation and bylaws have to be drafted. Will they be circulated and posted in their draft form prior to being submitted to the state and prior to any application to the IRS being submitted for the 501c3 status?
I assume that they would be discussed at the steering committee meeting, which is a public meeting, and obviously they would be on the agenda. There would be an opportunity to comment there on that.
I would imagine that's how it's going to work.
That would work, yeah.
And would they then come to the Board of Supervisors for review before submission? The documents, that is.
Yeah, I guess the steering committee, I'm sure after making their recommendations, can send them to the board for review before filing. I'm sure that's an appropriate step.
Okay.
That's generally how it works with
Yeah.
the steering committee. They always make a recommendation to us, and then we
Okay.
go forward with it.
And given the timetable, can I assume that with the sale of 14 Marple Lane, assuming that goes through and that there is a bid that meets the threshold, yeah. Those proceeds might come to the township prior to the incorporation and establishment of the 501c3. So there is a segregated bank account that would receive those proceeds?
Yes, the board approved securing a separate bank account specifically for the Abolition Hall site.
Right.
That has been set up and is ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve authorizing the advertisement of an ordinance adopting portions of the National Fire Protection Association standards that are silent in the PA Uniform Construction Code, along with enforcement of such ordinance as recommended from the Fire Marshal's office?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to call Andrew Thomas back up to share some more information about this.
We miss, hold on a second. We can do that.
Okay, we can go back.
We can go back to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Did I skip? Oh, yeah.
Sheaff Lane.
It's okay.
Sorry about
Let's
that.
finish them.
I will go back to that in a minute. Go ahead, Andrew.
The purpose of this ordinance is to strengthen the fire protection and life safety protections in Whitemarsh Township by adopting selected NFPA or National Fire Protection Association standards and authorizing their enforcement where they address hazards not fully regulated by the Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code. The Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code establishes minimum statewide building standards, primarily regulating the construction and installation of building systems. While these standards are important, they do not fully address many life safety issues that arise after the building is constructed and occupied. So these codes will assist us in helping us continue to do our job well with the fire inspection program and other aspects of plan review moving forward.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? Come on up.
Jeremy Hill, Lantern Lane. I just have one question. It's probably going to be answered by the fire marshal. Is there a specific reason that we're referring to older editions of the NFPA standards? Most of them have been updated more recently than like 2019 or more like 2024, 2025. Just that.
The reason for that, to answer his specific question, Pennsylvania just adopted the 2021 International Code Council's UCC recommendations. So we have to reference the most current code to their standard that they have.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Is there any other public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And my apologies, I'm going back to, do I have a motion to authorize the advertisement of an ordinance for the acquisition through a donation of 9.5-acre conservation easement from land located on parcel 65-00-10609-01-8, Sheaff Lane, adjacent to the Highlands?
So moved. Second.
I'm going to turn it over to Sean Kilkenny.
Sure. The Highlands has reached an agreement with the Ramoses to sell a half-acre of the Highlands land to the Ramoses to allow the Ramoses to take advantage of the Clean and Green Tax Incentive Program. The half-acre will allow the Ramoses to have 10 acres of land which meet the Clean and Green Program requirements. The money paid by the Ramoses to the Highlands for the half-acre will help us fund the Highlands Stewardship Program. The half-acre being conveyed from the Highlands to the Ramoses is already subject to a conservation easement in favor of the township. The Ramoses have offered the township the ability to extend the conservation easement onto the remaining 9.5 acres of their property for only nominal consideration, conditioned on allowing the existing single-family home on the Ramoses' property to remain with no additional structures permitted to be erected, and they've agreed to this. The proposed ordinance is required by the charter because the township is attaining an interest in real property in the form of a conservation easement over the additional 9.5 acres.
Thank you, Sean. Is there any board comment or questions? Is there any public comment? Sit down. Come on up.
Sidell, so just clarify, the half acre that's coming from the Highlands to the Ramoses, that is already protected?
It's already protected, yeah.
And the township paid the Highlands significant funds for that easement on that half acre and much more. So if the township if there's land that was eased by virtue of an open space conservation easement using public funds, then why is it that the Highlands are benefiting from the sale and not the township? And why isn't this?
The township's getting additional conservation easement.
On the half acre?
On the 9.5
acres. But I thought that under the open space regulations, if there is a sale of property eased using open space funds, that there had to be a public hearing process. Am I not remembering this correctly?
We could have the board make a motion, amend their motion that is approved subject that, but that's not my understanding.
So what I'm remembering.
We're only transferring okay, yeah.
But the land is being sold by the Highlands to the Ramoses, correct? That half acre?
Yeah.
And the proceeds are going to the Highlands. What I'm remembering is in connection with the sale of Marple Lane, there was discussion about whether there needed to be a public hearing because it had been acquired using open space funds, but it turned out that that wasn't the case, that land was acquired using the Carabots funds, but had it been acquired using open space funds, in fact, there would have had to be a hearing.
I think, as I suggested, perhaps hearing what you're saying, we have a motion on the floor with a second. Maybe someone can amend that motion that it would be approved subject to the solicitor researching that issue and confirming it, and then we could just move on. Oh, you have a point.
May I have a public comment before we do that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Edmund Shin. So the land, just to give context to what's happening here, the Highlands owns a large portion of land which is subject to a conservation easement held by Whitemarsh Township, providing public access and use in perpetuity. The township does not own the fee to the land, the Highlands does. So the Highlands is the owner of the land, the township holds a conservation easement. The Highlands is currently encroaching on the Ramoses' property because we have our trail system is actually cut through a portion of the Ramoses' property. And so part of this is we will transfer a half acre to the Ramoses so they have 10 acres. They're already in clean and green, but as they get older, the active ag that gets them in because they're just under 10 acres is becoming a burden. So we're going to transfer half an acre to them, and the portion that the Highlands is using on their land, they're going to put a public conservation easement on that to clean up our use of their property, as well as the additional acreage, which limits it to the one dwelling. So there's no fee that's held by the township. The conservation easement is fully, it runs with the land. So if the owner of the property sells it, that conservation easement is always there and it runs with the land, which is distinguishable from the township owning the property and selling it for consideration.
We hear what you're saying, and I think an abundance of caution, I would recommend to the board we continue that motion, just amend it. That'll be subject to the solicitor's review, and if there's some issue, we'll come back to you and we'll hold a public hearing if that's required, but if not, then it would be approved, and I'll send an email to the board and this way to handle it that way. If that's okay with the board.
Yeah. So I'm making a motion to amend.
To amend the motion that was made, that the motion would be approved, subject to the solicitor's review of all procedural requirements of transferring open space.
I make a motion to amend the current motion to allow for the solicitor's review of the procedural
to ensure that
all procedural requirements
under the Open Space Act
are being followed.
Yep.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve authorizing the advertisement for an ordinance establishing life safety requirements for electric vehicle charging stations located inside a parking structure as recommended by the Fire Marshal's Office?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'm going to call John up, please.
Good evening. This ordinance is in relation to the charging of electronic vehicles in parking garages specifically. It does not regulate the vehicle itself, and it does not apply to private homes, people, the average charger. Essentially, electronic vehicles have large lithium-ion batteries, which when they catch fire present a tremendous problem for the fire service for extinguishing. They take a much longer time to extinguish. They take a lot more water to extinguish. Parking garages are particularly dangerous because when you have a car fire, it spreads to the cars on either side, and you can potentially have quite a number of vehicles on fire. It's also harder for the fire service to get into, fight the fire. We can't drive a truck up into a parking garage. And that's what caught our attention. The current codes do not address the charging of electronic vehicles, and we're not looking to say you can't park a vehicle, an electronic vehicle in a parking garage. What we're addressing is the actual charging inside of a garage or structure of the electronic vehicle. So we've determined that it really requires more of a sprinkler coverage. So what we came up with was an increase in the threat level and the way that they calculate the amount of water that's needed. It's more than for a regular garage. So we came up with a proposal to have additional sprinkler coverage in the area of the chargers where the electronic vehicles will be charging. It doesn't require retrofitting of any of the garages. It doesn't require the entire garage to have that sprinkler coverage, just the areas that you want to put the chargers in. If you already have sprinklers and you change the system, you're going to have to upgrade it. If you have a charger and you change the charger out or add additional chargers, that will trigger the system. Other than that, the only other remedy for it, if it's an unsprinklered building and they're unable to put in the sprinklers, would be to put in a fire-rated wall separating the area where the cars are charging from the other vehicles in the garage. That's, in a nutshell, that's what the ordinance proposes. The actual nuts and bolts of it are in the ordinance.
Thank you, John. Are there any board comments or questions? Any public comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve authorizing the advertisement of an ordinance modifying the Mobile Food Vendor Ordinance by removing Section 85-19, Subsection D, for the exemption for persons operating under a special event permit as recommended by the Fire Marshal's Office?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to call Andrew Thomas back up, please.
The reason for this amendment to the original ordinance is to ensure we're inspecting all food trucks that are operating in the township. Even if they're there under a special event permit, we're still making sure they're following the proper protocols, have the proper insurances, and Department of Health standards.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? Come on up, Tom.
Good evening, Tom Dahl, Fairway Road. I just have a question, maybe for Andrew. Does that amendment to the ordinance, or whatever this ordinance is, does that preclude? In other words, are we saying that food trucks are exempt from the payment of a fee, or they now have to pay? So, for example, on Foundation Day, you've got food trucks, and Colonial Education Foundation also, they have food trucks that brings the people out. Currently, they're able to get an exemption from any permit that they have to pay. So does this mean that they now have to pay the permit?
Andrew?
Come on up.
Because that was my interpretation when I read it.
So Foundation Day is a unique event that we work with. We do give them the ability to operate that day, but it is a day-only permit. If they want to operate within the confines of Whitemarsh Township after said special event.
So one day, it's basically a one day.
It's a one day.
And you can't get the permit waived for that.
We waive their fee and give them a one-day permit to operate at Foundation Day. If they decide they want to operate on multiple occasions outside of Foundation Day, they have to pay for a township permit.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve authorizing the advertisement of an ordinance creating the position of a Director of Public Safety?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'm going to begin by reading a statement. Today's emergency response environment increasingly requires strong coordination among police, fire, and EMS services, particularly when multiple agencies are responding together. Strengthening the systems that support communication, joint planning, and collaboration across agencies is essential to ensure that every responder can operate as effectively as possible. Last year, the Emergency Services Board asked the Board of Supervisors to conduct a study of our emergency services in Whitemarsh Township, specifically our 2 fire companies and our ambulance company. Jerry Ozog, now with the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Officials, conducted the study, and he's on Zoom with us this evening. Following the study, the Board of Supervisors requested that Jerry help facilitate an anonymous survey examining the status of the administrative and operational coordination of the fire departments, ambulance company, and police department. The response to the recent anonymous survey was remarkable. With participation from more than 1/3 of respondents, the results reflect a strong level of commitment, professionalism, and engagement across our emergency service organizations. This willingness to share candid feedback demonstrates a shared desire to improve coordination and continue building a stronger system together. Many of the issues identified involve coordination across agencies, areas where no single department has authority to solve the problem alone. The board believes these are issues we must address together. The Board of Supervisors has identified several themes that emerged consistently from both the study requested by the Emergency Services Board and the anonymous survey. Those themes are the need for stronger communication across agencies, greater coordination in planning and training, and clearer mechanisms for addressing shared operational challenges. In response, the board is taking an initial step this evening. Tonight's vote is only to authorize advertisement of the proposed ordinance, creating the position of Director of Public Safety. The board is not voting on adoption of the ordinance at this time. Following the advertisement, the public will have approximately 3 weeks to review the proposal and provide comments. We are listening carefully to the feedback we receive. There will be an additional opportunity for public comment at our April board meeting, ahead of any vote the board may take on the ordinance itself. Also at our April board meeting, we may consider authorizing an advertisement seeking to obtain candidates for the position of the Director of Public Safety. We would then conduct interviews and select the most qualified individual for this role, appointing them at a subsequent Board of Supervisors meeting. The Director of Public Safety will help translate the findings of the study and survey into practical improvements in communication, joint planning, and coordinated response systems. The Director of Public Safety will focus on strengthening coordination, communication, and long-term planning across our police, fire, and EMS services. The creation of this position does not change the operational structure of any emergency service organization. Police, fire, and EMS personnel will continue to perform their responsibilities within their respective departments as they do today. The Director of Public Safety will provide regular reporting and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors while working collaboratively with Township administration and emergency services leadership. In the meantime, Jerry Ozog has shaped a list of next steps that we can work on together before we have an individual in the role of Public Safety Director. The Board of Supervisors recognizes the crucial role of all emergency services in our community. The Board of Supervisors is looking forward to collaborating with all emergency services entities, including the ESB, that's the Emergency Services Board, and all volunteer boards. The board wishes to undertake a thoughtful planning process to help guide the emergency service departments and build trust between all stakeholders. The Board of Supervisors will engage the ESB and the emergency services entities each step of the way. Our emergency responders bring deep experience and commitment to serving this community. We want to take that passion and expertise and create a future together, continuing to ensure the safety and security of our residents. And at this time, I want to make it crystal clear of what we are voting on tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean Kilkenny for an explanation and for us.
Thank you very much. I know the board has placed on the agenda this ordinance for only advertisement this evening, and the public has had the opportunity to review the ordinance, and the ordinance does as Chair Toll says. As far as procedural requirements related to this, obviously the public having the chance to review the ordinance can comment tonight up to 3 minutes to comment on an ordinance. And as the chair said, there'll be more than 3 weeks where this ordinance will be circulating. There'll be an opportunity for the public to send their comments to the manager or the Board of Supervisors before any potential enactment of this ordinance. Also, too, if it's scheduled for enactment at our April meeting, there would be an opportunity for public comment then. And if the Board of Supervisors thought that the ordinance had to be changed in a major fashion, they could table the ordinance and re-advertise and make those adjustments. So we are complying with both Pennsylvania law, the second-class township code, and our own charter as far as the advertising requirements go. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? So I'm going to open it up for public comment. I want to keep in mind the 3-minute limit because I know there's a lot of folks that want to speak. And I'm going to open it up now for public comment. Come on up, Tom.
I don't know if this is a question or comments, but I saw the article today that was in More Than a Curve about it. And I was quite surprised when I read some of the briefing material that we have a communication problem. We're supposed to be a small, nimble little township, and we're supposed to be able to communicate between all of our offices, whether it's Craig's office or the fire chief or the 2 fire departments that we do have. it was very disappointing to hear that we have that type of a communication issue that requires this to be set up. I mean, to me, I don't know enough about it, so I can't comment, but why do we have 2 fire departments? It seems to me, with a township this small, why don't we have just one and eliminate, this miscommunication that goes between them, or this fighting or bickering between what Barron Hill gets and what Spring Mill gets. It just seemed bizarre to me that this would be an issue in this township. I was very surprised when I heard about this report and didn't know anything about it.
Thank you, Tom. Any other public comment? Come on up.
If we could just announce that they need to raise their hand so we can unmute them on Zoom.
Yeah,
There is some people on here, I don't know if they want to talk or not.
Okay, great.
Hi. The short. Lisa Dunleavy, Germantown Pike. I just wanted to say I attended last night's meeting at the Barron Hill Fire Company. I wanted to share some takeaways with you from that. I have no affiliation with any of the fire companies or ambulance service. My first takeaway was everyone in the room cared deeply about the safety of our community, Board of Supervisors, your representation, and the organizations there. So I very much appreciated that, and in that spirit, I came here wanting to have a greater understanding. So my first request was respectfully to the board that you hold a properly advertised public meeting and share the full study findings that led you to want to advertise the ordinance for this position. Postpone holding that meeting and advertising the ordinance until there is a job description and full cost details are available for public review to ensure understanding and opportunity for open discourse with constituents. I wanted to touch on transparency. Last night's meeting at the firehouse functioned as a public meeting, a consultant presenting findings from a taxpayer-funded study, and township leaders were present discussing recommendations. Unfortunately, the public was not given proper notice that would allow residents to attend. I found out the same from More Than the Curve and had like 20 minutes to pop down. And I felt it was a really important meeting and I learned a lot at it. And I feel strongly that the rest of the public would too had they had notice. Transparency and compliance with the Sunshine Act are essential to community trust. And then the other point was just, I agreed that public safety and emergency services are a #1 priority for any community. Fiscal responsibility, in my opinion, is #2. We spent about, I don't know if this is accurate, $30,000 on the study. Creating such a position could become a multi-million-dollar long-term commitment, not only factoring the base salary, but benefits, pension, equipment, a vehicle, things of that nature. Missing information for the public. Before advertising an ordinance, best practices would normally include a clear job description and scope of duties, salary range and benefits, reporting structure, which I saw some of that. I had to read over like 78 pages or something for More Than the Curve. Budget line item, where is this being paid from? And total cost impact. I don't feel these are available for public review. Can you legally proceed? Yes. Should you handle it in this way? In my opinion, no. I'd kind of like to know why the rush, and maybe you could discuss that. I know you guys spent months getting to this point, and not all of us fully understood that, but I feel like the introduction of this position and jumping to the advertisement without those things in place feels a little aggressive and rushed, and I would like to learn more about it. I'm neither for or against it, by the way. I don't feel like I have enough information as one of your constituents. So the other point, and I'm probably at 3 minutes, urge you to not create it as a framework ordinance where the job description, duties, and salary are defined later by a resolution or administrative action that does not require the same public advertisement process. For an important issue such as this, the full details should be transparent before an ordinance process begins. And so again, I just wanted to thank you all for all the time into it. I really think it's a #1 priority, but I don't feel the community knows enough about it, and I feel like we need to maybe take a step back and be more transparent and inform us a little better about that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
There's someone online, I don't know. I think there's other people.
Come on up. We'll go to the online person next. Thank you.
Jeremy Hill, Lantern Lane.
Yes.
Just a heads up, I think some people are probably called in as well that might not be able to raise their hand. So
Okay.
Just, I don't know how you might handle that, but just to give it a heads up.
Thank you.
I've got a couple questions. The first kind of being, why specifically did the ESB ask for this study to take place? I don't know if there's going to be answers here, but that would be my first question. I believe the company that was hired was Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, or was it specifically Jerry Ozog as a consultant? Do we know that? Is that allowed to ask questions?
Well, this is an opportunity for public comment.
Okay. Well, so yes, I guess my position would be that it appears that Jerry was hired through the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, which I believe is an association that we also are a part of.
So I just want to correct that. Jerry was not hired through the Pennsylvania Association of Township Supervisors. That is his current job. When we had hired him, he had not been in that position yet, but he's not representing through this study PSATs.
Okay, so he's representing through, I guess, a consulting agency or his own company. I believe that the RFP went out like a year ago. I believe Jerry's been working for the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors for over 1.5 years at this point in time. He is a member of that organization. I believe that's an organization that we, as a township, pay to be a part of. So I kind of start questioning if we're hiring an individual separately that is on that, and on all the reports, it clearly states that. So I'd question the conflict of interest in that situation. I believe the reports suggested a fire chief, a singular fire chief. It sounds like the proposal is for a director position that will obviously have hundreds of thousands of dollars associated with it through, obviously salary, all that type of stuff. So I would like to know why, excuse me, the board is veering away from what the study suggested. If Jerry is in fact the subject matter expert, and there was a reason we hired him, and then I believe that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment. I just want to remind everybody the public comment is around the ordinance this evening. Is there any other public comment? And it is only the publishing of the ordinance itself. This is the first step, the very first step. Fran, come on up.
Fran McCusker, Indian Guide Road. First, I want to say thank you to the Board of Supervisors for taking action when it comes to emergency services. I thought it was a great description that you had for this new director position. I think in my experience with working with the Emergency Services Board, we learned over time that collaboration and communication was weakening. And what we're not talking about so much is that all emergency service departments are included in this. The director will oversee police, fire, and ambulance. So the communication will be streamlined. And not only streamlined just to the director, but then streamlined to the Board of Supervisors. And what has happened in the past is the fire departments and the ambulance service did not have a direct line to the Board of Supervisors. This gives them the opportunity. Now, when you have this type of collaboration and communication, the departments will get better. Whitemarsh gets better, and Whitemarsh gets safer. This also sets the tone for the future. Emergency services is evolving, and I know the experts in the back of the room can come up and they can make comments on how it's going to evolve, but it's evolving. And this director position will help take us into the future to make Whitemarsh ready to be safe as we go on year to year. So thank you very much. I think you're on the right path.
Thank you, Fran. Is there any other public comment?
I have someone online here.
Okay, thank you.
Fran Kelly, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for all your hard work.
Just.
Can you state your name and your address,
I'm
please?
sorry. I'm
No
sorry.
worries.
You already said my name. Fran Kelly, Marianne Road. I just want to thank you all for all you're doing and to comment on the young woman who spoke earlier. I think you are all being transparent. I think that a director of public safety is warranted. I don't think you're not being transparent. I think that you're talking about the ordinance of just advertising for this type of position. And as Fran McCusker just stated, it would be a strengthening for the supervisors and all of those departments to have a strong communication. And I think that's what's important. So thank you for your time. I won't take any longer.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
I don't know, if we heard people can't.
So you have three people
raise
here
their
that are on,
hand.
there are three people that are on the phone.
That are on
So
the
why don't you
phone?
unclick them and give them the
Yeah, can we
opportunity?
Okay, I'm going to start
Yep.
with the last four digits, 9150. I'm going to ask 9150 phone number.
They want to comment.
If you want to comment, yeah. Okay. Phone number 3500. Oh, there we are.
No comment.
Okay, thank you. Phone number 6412. 6412. Any comment? 6412.
Okay, that concludes.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? All right. All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Someone just raised
Go
their
ahead.
hand.
I want to make sure everybody comments. Everybody that wants to comment.
Sarah Toll?
That concludes.
Is there any other public comment? Hello?
Hello?
Did you want to make a public comment? Favor? Oh, go ahead.
Someone just raised.
Go ahead. I want to make sure everybody comments. Everybody
Yes.
gets to comment.
Yes.
Yes. This
Is that feedback?
Sarah Toll, 2112 Julia Drive. Sarah
Hello?
Toll, 2112.
Did you want to make a public comment?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I want to make sure everybody comments.
Yes.
To comment. All right.
Yes.
That doesn't sound like it's working, so, yeah, just, yep.
Oh.
Just, is there anybody else? Online?
No one online.
All right. Is there anybody else that wants to make a public comment? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve a hold harmless agreement for replacement of fence at 4029 Center Avenue, Lafayette Hill, with like kind and size?
So moved.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
All right. Charlie?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to share just one exhibit. This is, okay, this is a property at 4029 Center Avenue. They came in with a request to get a fence permit to replace an existing fence. Turns out the existing fence was never permitted. It was put in by a prior owner, we don't know how many years ago. And on both First Street and Center Avenue, this is a corner lot, it is in the ultimate right-of-way. I asked the police department to check if they found a problem with replacing the fence with a similar fence in the same location. And the bottom picture shows you what it looks like now and essentially what it will look like with a new fence. And the police came back and said there was no safety issue, there's no sight distance issue, and they therefore had no issue with the Hold Harmless Agreement. So staff is recommending that the board approve a Hold Harmless Agreement so the owner can get a permit to replace their fence.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Is there any board comment? Is there any public comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the financials for February 2026 reflecting expenditures totaling $1,041,253.45, payroll in the amount of $772,828.98, and no pension plan expenditures in the amount of $0?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. It's time for regular public comment. Does anyone have public comment? Come on up, Tom.
I just have a couple of questions on the expenditures. I just went through them and just looked at a couple of them just to kind of see what they were, because I don't know what they are. Maybe you guys do, or you could find out. There is almost $33,000 to Cargill. Like, what's Cargill? I looked them up. They're a meatpacking organization, like the largest meatpacking organization in the country. What are we spending $33,000 on Cargill for?
If I'm not mistaken, that's for fuel.
What's that?
Fuel.
Fuel. Cargill's into fuel?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay. There's a payment in there also to the Colonial School District for $68,337.50. What's that for? Do we collect taxes for the school district and then have to remit them back?
I'll look into that. Or, Angela, you have any idea?
I can look into it.
Okay.
Yep.
And then there's a payment for Keystone Municipalities. It's a small amount, $5,172. But what's that all about?
They're a third-party inspection agency.
But then in the check disbursements, there's another $18,369 that's called inspections. I thought that's what we had people doing, as opposed to.
We have one inspector. Yeah.
So we outsource the other inspections?
We do.
Okay. And then there's a general services in the check expenditures for $15,878.46. What's that for?
I'm sorry, what was the title on
It says general services.
We can get back to you on.
And then there's another one that says comp recreation park open space, $7,026.50. What's that for?
Comp open space. That's probably for a grant.
It's an expenditure. A grant, we'd be getting money in from a grant. And then I guess the last one, since you're going to be looking at things, is this Delaware Valley Health Insurance. I guess that's our health benefit plan through them, $206,000. I thought the state had, where they did like a group plan for all of the municipalities that would be a part of. And then how much is the cost per employee? If it's $206,000 for the month,
It varies.
How many employees do we have?
It varies between who, the single couple, single with child.
yeah, I know,
family.
from family coverage,
Yeah,
but
there's
on
all-
average, like what's the cost per employee?
For a single, I'm going to guess around $20,000 for the year.
20, that's pretty cheap. I know our company was a lot more than that, and I've been retired 3 years. But I was just kind of curious as to what these expenditures were. And lastly, there just seems
It's
to be
a trust, though. I mean, the Delaware Valley Insurance Trust, it's a trust. It's with many municipalities in a few states, New Jersey and Delaware.
Okay. So it's roughly, is it roughly like 200,000 per month? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we seem to buy a lot of parts. Like, I didn't add them all up, but there's all these little expenditures, $400 here, $300 there. I mean, are we sure that people are actually spending this money on parts? And what are the parts?
They're watching it, Tom.
I would hope so. It's an awful lot of money going out for parts.
Remember, we had a lot of snow, so we had a lot of parts to clear your driveway, or not your driveway, but your roads and everything else. So we had a lot of downtime with plows and trucks.
It just seemed like a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes?
Yes, sorry to interrupt. I know there will be perhaps additional public comment. While I was sitting here in relation to Ms. Zove's question on the open space, I wanted to address that and have a certain action while we're still doing the meeting. So I figured that was good. So Mr. Sander got back to me, who is not tonight. He said, I would respond that the ordinance authorizes the acquisition of the property as required by the charter. We will likely need a public hearing when we have a conservation easement to approve. Mr. Shin has yet to get the documents together to provide that. We can hold a public hearing in April and provide the Ramoses with the required notice. So then what I would suggest, hearing that, is per changes in state law, you can actually amend an agenda now. So I would suggest making a motion to amend the agenda and then a motion to authorize the public hearing in relation to the Ramos property, so then we don't have to come back again if this is ready to go in April, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So the first step of the motion to amend the
I'm going to make a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
The motion carries. And then I'm going to make a motion to
authorize a public hearing as required by the Open Space Act for the conservation easement related to the Ramos property.
To authorize a public hearing regarding a conservation easement as it pertains to the Ramos property.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Just see if there's any public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public
on that
comment
motion?
with regard to that motion? Sidell, come on up.
Sidell Zove, I want to thank Mr. Kilkenny and Mr. Sanders behind the scene for looking into this so quickly and diligently, and my suspicion was correct that public hearing was necessary, and I appreciate the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there any other public comment this evening? Come on up, Sidell.
Sidell Zove. I brought this suggestion to the Abolition Hall Steering Committee at its last meeting last week, but I also want to bring it to your attention. I've been attending every single one of these meetings since the committee was formed. Participation has diminished over time, public participation. There were 2 of us, public, in the audience last time. That did not include a member of the HARB board who was there sort of on behalf of HARB, the Historical Architectural Review Board, as well as the former owners, who I wouldn't exactly call members of the public. So my suggestion there and tonight is that the meeting notice and the agenda and the packet for these meetings be circulated well in advance of the meeting. They've been coming out the Friday afternoon before the Monday of the meeting. Generally speaking, it's been my experience that meeting agendas and packets go out about a week ahead of time. Certainly for Board of Supervisors, Planning Commission, that has been the case. I don't closely follow the other committees and commissions, but these are the 2 that I do. I think you would get more participation if people had more notice. I also think that the packet for the steering committee, Abolition Hall Steering Committee meetings has to include a little bit more substance. So, for example, if the architect is listed on the agenda as providing an update on the conditions assessment that is underway, how about having some kind of summary of the findings? I noticed for tonight's meeting, there were pages and pages of information on the gardening recognition program, the greening. I flipped through it very quickly, but for the Abolition Hall Steering Committee, where I was desperately searching for some substance, there was none. Nothing about the grant application that was being submitted, nothing about the architect's conditions assessment, report. So 2 recommendations. The meeting notice go out sooner than the Friday before the Monday meeting. And secondly, that there be some content to the packet that might encourage people to read and come prepared to ask questions and participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Sit down. Is there any other public comment? Is there any board comment? All right, I am going to announce that the board had executive session on March 6th, March 9th, March 6th, March 9th, March 11th, and March 12th on personnel items.
And before this meeting.
Yeah, before this meeting today,
Yeah.
yes. That's March 12th. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, and good night, Whitemarsh.